We think that professionals spend a ton of time on meta work, which is just work about work. So anything a great assistant can do involving the calendar, Howie can do.
Welcome to The Peel. I'm your host, Turner Novak, founder of Banana Capital. Today's guest is Austin Petersmith, co-founder and CEO of Howie, the AI secretary.
Every AI product is called assistant or copilot, and secretary is a word that more accurately describes what Howie does.
Howie officially launched 2 weeks ago with a viral video and much customer love. This conversation goes inside the early days of the company, including Austin and the team's very opinionated approach, making Howie one of the most narrow use cases of any AI product I've ever seen.
It has turned out to be a lot harder than we thought to solve it. We've built the flywheel and the architecture and all these things to solve the one thing, and then we can do more and more over time.
But all this has made it one of the few AI products that actually works, growing double digits every month for the past year.
When you build for text message or Slack, people expect it to respond at the speed of ChatGPT, and email has latency built into the system.
We talked about their decision to completely rebuild the product last year, adding a human-in-the-loop element, similar to how Cruise and Waymo train self-driving cars.
We can always have a product experience that is far ahead of what the models at a given time are capable of.
We also go inside the making of their viral launch video.
We were planning for September 22nd, and I think it was like September 5th that I texted Matt.
Why more software should be augmenting humans with AI.
Everyone is kind of trying to build the fully AI accounting firm instead of the AI accounting firm that has phenomenal accountants.
Lessons on building a brand from scratch, and the unique pitch deck strategy Austin used to raise $6 million.
You should just stretch it out farther because they're going to give you 3 seconds for every slide, and then they're going to keep paging through.
And what he learned working for Jason Calacanis.
He was literally studying the tapes of these interviews.
A quick thank you to my co-investors in Howie, Adam Doggelli, Sophia Amoruso, and Alex Cohen for helping brainstorm topics for Austin. A reminder, I publish 2 episodes of The Peel every week, exploring the world's greatest startup stories, just like this one. Check out the back catalog of over 100 episodes and tune in next week for a conversation with Eric Bernhardsen, co-founder and CEO of Modal, building AI infrastructure that developers love. Now, let's talk to Austin after a quick word from Hanover Park. Hanover Park vertically integrates fund admin, portfolio management, and the LP experience for finance and investment teams. Most of you have probably interfaced with a fund admin provider in some way. They're a necessary evil for every type of asset manager across not just venture, but also private equity and private credit. They provide bookkeeping and accounting so investment firms can report to their investors on a quarterly basis. What's crazy is they charge hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars per year to basically not screw up your accounting. They stitch together third-party software like QuickBooks, Bill.com, Salesforce, and Excel, and then throw a bunch of bodies at you. And that's where Hanover Park comes in. They built their own accounting system from scratch, which ingests all your firm's data and documents, and their AI-native solution automates all the manual work that drives private market investors crazy. Head to hanoverpark.com/Turner and try the AI-native ERP for private market funds. That's hanoverpark.com/Turner and 10x your fund admin. Austin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I think this will be fun. We were talking right before we started recording all the stuff we're gonna hit on. Really quick though, for people who are not familiar with Howie, can you just give us a quick high level on what it is?
Yeah, so Howie is the modern secretary. He's a mix of AI, and then also we use humans in the loop to correct some mistakes before they happen, and totally focused on scheduling. So he's email based. You email Howie at howie.com, or can even white label him and give him a different name and an email at your domain, and anything that you do with your calendar that is tedious, Howie can do it. So you CC him on a thread, and he can offer time slots. He can reschedule meetings, set up Zoom links. He knows where you like to take your in-person meetings, can pick up subtle signals like maybe a secret phrase that means a meeting is low priority, and then he'll schedule it far out in the future, and will notify you if there's conflicts coming up on your calendar, if you have a meeting coming up that you have an RSVP'd to just help you with your general calendar hygiene. And he'll click Calendly links for you so you don't have to click on those, and can look at other people's calendars within your organization. So if you're scheduling a call externally and want to offer the overlap of your availability plus 2 other people, then he can do that. And so anything a great assistant can do involving the calendar, Howie can do.
Yeah, I think my favorite feature is the giving it a different name. So I had a tweet a couple months ago. I called mine Chamath, and that got I don't know. I think you said it was one of like the best days for the company for like new revenue when I tweeted that. I called it Chamath and then
Yeah, it was like right when we had rolled out that feature, and people want that feature because it's like super cool to be able to name it. So most people have not done like most people have done more serious names, but we've seen a huge mix of different things. Some people call it like bot at whatever because they really want it to feel like AI, and other people create like a whole persona of an actual kind of like human and name it based on that. And so we've seen a really really wide mix, but we have tons of them now, and it's really fun to see. And we've seen also times where there's like two Howies on the same email thread, but both it's like Victoria and George, and they're like interacting with each other, and they're both actually Howie under the hood, but they're these two different identities.
it's like one of that meme with like the interconnected brain, like going like the AI, like the AI is going back and forth.
Exactly.
And so you mentioned one thing that I want to talk about later, but you said there's like a human in the loop element. I know that was like a big decision on doing that. We can hit on that a little bit, but you kind of had to do that because it's so hard to build this thing. Like, why is it so hard to make an AI assistant that specifically lives in your email? Like, it kind of seems like the easiest possible thing you could build, really, with AI.
Yeah, so I mean the email architecture is not the hard part, but what is hard is there's a lot of context in email threads. By the time Howie gets CC'd on an email thread, there might be 10 messages that went back and forth already that involve lots of mentions of dates and times. People's email signatures mention times or time zones or locations, and the actual metadata in the emails has lots of times and dates in it, and the time zones often are different from one to the next. And so there's a lot of kind of red herrings in an email thread. And then there's also a lot of human intuition in deciding what to do. When do you actually respond versus not respond, and subtle signals that people include. And so, and all these things, you look at them, none of them are hard 100% of the time, but they are very hard for an AI model to get right 100% of the time. So it's like the models can easily 50%, like 2 days into building this product, we had 50% accuracy. That was just like, it just half the time it does exactly the thing you want. And then it's like this climb where each 1% past that is harder. And so the main thing that makes this really hard is that mistake tolerance is very low. So if ChatGPT makes a mistake, then you just kind of move on. You're like, oh, ChatGPT made a mistake. GPT 3.5 was a phenomenal product, the fastest growing product in the history of the world at the time. And it was pretty bad overall. It would make tons of mistakes and hallucinate and couldn't get a lot of like really basic stuff right. But scheduling, there's a very low tolerance for mistakes. Like we one time sent a customer to a coffee shop and we had forgotten to include the other person on the calendar invite. So he was sitting at a coffee shop waiting for a meeting that was never going to happen because the other person hadn't been invited. And you can't make that type of mistake very many times. And so when our customers schedule with their investors, with candidates they're trying to hire, with their customers, and those are just not interactions that you can afford to screw up. And so the low tolerance for mistakes is a big part of what makes it really high. And so you've got to be able to create a lot of human intuition in the product where it understands what people are trying to say, and it doesn't get ahead of its skis in terms of like trying to engage in the conversation too much versus just like focusing on the scheduling aspect. And then there's just a lot of ways that mistakes can be made when you're scheduling across time zones and scheduling with a whole bunch of different people who have all shared different things about their availability. And so there's just like a lot of ways that these things can fail on the margins.
And I know this is kind of a long time in the making, like the product. Like, where did it first kind of start?
Okay, so my co-founder Dave and I worked together a long time ago, 2013, 2014. And then in 2015, Slack introduced the Slack platform functionality where you could build a Slack bot. And we built a Slack bot that was like, you put it in your company Slack and you ask for anything. And we quickly got a bunch of people using it who really liked it. So they would ask for whatever they wanted. They'd be like, review this stack of resumes for me, or schedule an offsite for my team to go to Cancun tomorrow or next month or something, or like get sushi delivered to our office on the Lower East Side right now. And whatever the tasks were, we would just like figure out how to do them. And
wait. So like, was it AI, or are you like literally like doing this stuff on the back end?
Yeah, so it was totally humans. But our idea was that it would be humans, but we thought we can build a bunch of regex like we can build some technology that will streamline the requests so that we can route them. And by the time that a human sees it, it's like kind of been through some filters that simplify the task and make it repeatable. And we thought we could build technology that would make it scalable. We quickly saw with the kind of variety from one request to the next that there was no way, there's no technology to build. Like if we were going to build this business, we were literally building a call center, and we decided not to do it. We're like, this is crazy. And that was 2015. Then years later, we both were like playing with LLMs a bunch. We've been close ever since, and have like talked about building something together over the years. And so a year and a half ago or whatever, we were like, hey, maybe actually now we could build that thing we tried to build, but have it be technology this time. And we started prototyping a little bit and quickly came to the conclusion, like, it still is not possible, like to build the generalist assistant that you can ask to do anything. We did see at the time a bunch of companies that had raised money kind of on that promise, and still now, like, none of them have really caught on. Even Microsoft Copilot is like kind of an example of that. It's like it purports to do 1,000 different things, but it doesn't do any of them particularly well. And so we felt like the answer here is pick one task, and a task that you can do really, really well, and blow that out of the water. And then over time, layer in more and more. And so we chose scheduling because we thought it's a frequent, tedious use case for billions of professionals around the world. Like no matter what industry you're in, scheduling is a part of is a time suck on you, and that happens every single day. And it has distribution kind of built in because there's usually multiple people involved in a scheduling interaction. So a scheduling product that does well will get visibility to other people and can kind of grow through PLG in that way. And then it felt solvable. Like it's narrow enough that we can actually solve it. And we were naive on that third point, which we'll talk about kind of some of the challenges. Like it has turned out to be a lot harder than we thought to solve it. But we're proud that we have delivered a product that really stands out in the market on this narrow task. And so if we had picked anything less narrow than this, we would have really fallen on our faces. And instead what we picked was like what we thought was like not too difficult to solve. And instead it turned out to be difficult to solve, but it's still a really great kind of starting point where we've built the kind of flywheel and the architecture and all these things to solve the one thing. And then we can do more and more over time. And so that's kind of the origin story. And we really quickly validated that people want the product and are willing to pay for it. And more slowly kind of we're able to get to the product that we have today that actually works.
Yeah, because it's interesting that it's so narrow and like niche, or just like specifically like the one action of like scheduling a call. Like I remember when I first met you, like couldn't even do like in-person meetings. To your point about messing it up, like it was so simple, but also was super broad. Like everyone takes meetings. So it's like narrow and niche, but also extremely broad at the same time. So it's kind of like this interesting, Goldilocks, just the perfect amount of, finding where you kind of enter this personal assistant AI agent entry point into like, expanding the use cases over time.
Yeah. I mean, I think for other people building AI agents, there's a lesson there because there's a tendency, it's scary to put a product out into the world. And there's a tendency to then, because it's scary, you want to try to have it be able to do more. So it's less likely that a person is like, oh, that's not for me, because there's just like more things that it claims to do. And LLMs have made this even trickier because you can throw anything at an LLM and get something back. So if you're making an AI agent, it's like, why not let it go research the web for our customers? Or why not let it like, I don't know, do whatever other thing that's like just an API call to GPT. But the narrower you go, even though that's scary, it actually like allows customers to self-select. Like you don't sign up for Howie if you don't schedule lots of external meetings, but if you do, you're going to have a phenomenal experience and you're going to absolutely love it, and it's going to be indispensable for you. And after they self-select, it also lets customers know once they start using it what to do with it. And so there's lots of generalist AI products out there that like I try all these tools, and it's like there's lots of them where I'm like, okay, it said it can do like all these different things. What do I even start with? And which one is actually going to work for me? And with Howie, we don't have that, because it's just like you use it to schedule your meetings, and that's what it does. And if you're not interested in that, it's probably not going to be useful to you. But if you are, it's going to do a great job at that, and you're going to know how to use it right away. And we can stand behind the experience you will have within that because we've designed it very carefully. And so it's going to work for you and it will become indispensable for you and you'll build a lot of trust. And then when we start doing the next thing, you'll already have that trust in place.
Yeah, even like when you talk about like how hard some of these things are, like even with ChatGPT, for a while I just like didn't know what to do with it. Like you sometimes with these products, you like need someone to tell you. Like I think there's a reason that sort of like tutorial videos are so important. Just like how do you use insert X products? Like I've been using Attio, the kind of I don't know, it's like a modern CRM, and it's like the product is like pretty complex, and you just watch YouTube videos like, oh, that's how you do that thing, or like another one would be like Notion. Like I'm sure when you first started using Notion, you're like, what do I even do with this thing? But you like watch a video of like, oh, you can use it to like plan out a product roadmap or like internal wiki or content calendar. Like I use it to plan a podcast, use it for pipeline for investing, like things that I'm looking at. And it's like, you kind of know maybe you could do those things, maybe, but just like seeing it and having somebody explain to you how to do it, it does help. But again, it's like super simple, granular. People know exactly what you use it for. How did you decide email? Because I think it's probably one of the very few AI agents that I've seen that like lives in your email. It's kind of like a, interesting entry point. And that was just it was just a function of email schedule, like scheduling meetings. Most of it's done in email.
Yeah. So, I mean, types of scheduling happen in a variety of different places. So like a lot of internal scheduling mostly happens in like Slack and Microsoft Teams. And I hear a lot from like crypto people who are like, I want to use your product, but I need it to support Telegram because that's where I do all my scheduling or Signal or whatever the different apps are. And so, and then like tons of customers from the beginning have been like, I really want text messages because I like do scheduling on text, or I want to be able to text Howie to say like, put this soccer schedule on my calendar. And it's just not like conducive to me to switch to email for that type of thing. And so it's just like lower friction to fire off a text message. But for the coordination of external meetings, email just is where that happens. So it's like where booking links are sent more than anywhere else. And it's where the back and forth of like, how about this day? How about that day? Or like any of that it just happens on email more than anywhere else. So it made a ton of sense as a place to start. And then it also is a fun place to build an AI product specifically because when you build for text message or Slack or any of these other things, people expect it to respond at the speed of ChatGPT, and email has latency built into the system and then social latency built into it too, where just like you don't have the expectation of the fastest responses in the world on emails. And so we like between the humans in the loop and then also the approach that we have to inference, which is we use lots of fine-tuned models. We use lots of different models and we use heavy reasoning on a lot of different steps. And so there are some tasks that we do where even without a human in the loop, it takes us 10, 12 minutes to complete the inference. And that's not an acceptable response time on text message, but on email, that is totally an acceptable response time. And so it gave us the ability to like really focus on how do we get the result correct as opposed to how do we get a good and fast response.
Yeah. It just generally, maybe Howie or more broadly too, but like what are you seeing some of these agents being specifically really good at today, like different types of use cases? Or on the other side, like they still just can't do? Like what are the limitations, generally speaking?
It's really hard to get them to be perfect at anything. And that's hard for us to kind of comprehend sometimes because it's like you play with it and it works. And so then you expect it to always work. But it's just the 5% mistakes are just don't work because in any interaction, there are a whole bunch of options or of opportunities for it to have that 5% error. And so it's like it's really hard to get perfection in pretty much anything. I think where the models are really good today, it's funny because I'm like, for our task, even like the model, I'm very dissatisfied with it's like, we are living in an unbelievable era and it's magic and create mind blowing what we can do that we couldn't do years ago. But like I do not think that the models are capable of being an executive assistant, even within the scope of scheduling today. I don't think anybody could build it, even if you had 1,000 AI researchers. And And because there's so much intuition and subtle nuance to the right step that needs to be taken. But at the same time, they're very good at speeding things up. So what we have for our humans in the loop is this kind of like interface that allows them to do executive assistant tasks faster than anybody ever has before. So the tasks actually run, the models make predictions in a simulated environment, and the human, by the time they see it, they can see start to end what the model is trying to do, and they can chat with it to interact with it. So they can say, you got the time zones wrong here, and then they'll see it re-simulate right in front of their eyes. And that's a pretty magical experience where in January, when I was our human in the loop and the only human in the loop that we had, and then Nicole on our team started doing it, and it was like just the two of us, but it like we were spending like 30 minutes on these tasks that now we have people doing in like 90 seconds. And so where it's worked really well for us is like massive efficiency in still a human doing a lot of the kind of heavy lifting of the task, or at least like spot checking to catch the mistakes.
Yeah, and maybe that's worth talking about, because I remember it was kind of a big decision to kind of tear it all down, rebuild it, incorporate the human in the loop element. What kind of went into that, and how did you decide to do it?
We were doing the same thing everyone's doing, which is like prompt hacking, trying to get the models to be better, trying different fine tuning approaches, RL. We were trying all the different things, and we could get the numbers to move, but we could not have any line of sight to them, to the product being good enough that it never makes dumb mistakes. And dumb mistakes were just costing us customers. It's like people love the promise of it. They would start using it and absolutely love it. And then a couple of dumb mistakes, and they're just like, I would rather just do this myself or pay for a full-time assistant. And so we could see that the like chipping away at like 1 basis point at a time to try to get to 100% accuracy was just not going to work. And like, it's not that we are the greatest machine learning engineers in the world, but we're also like pretty good at what we do. And we thought that like, if we weren't just like it wasn't engineering resources that were the thing that was stopping us from actually like climbing that hill all the way to the top. It was like, these are constraints that are built into the system that we need to work with. And so acknowledging that, and then acknowledging that we have chosen a space where the mistake tolerance is really low, made us start to realize, okay, what we actually need to do is just pull forward the best possible product experience, and then chip away as we go at getting closer and closer to the models being able to do that. And then as we do that, we can also like give the humans a more complex task. And so we can always have a product experience that is far ahead of what the models at a given time are capable of. And that will allow us to like get better at training the models, get better at doing the actual product experience, and then move faster in terms of like taking on new types of tasks that are beyond what we've originally kind of set out to do. So once we had that clarity, it still was scary. Like software people don't like operationalizing a human team. We have 65 people now, full-time contractors that work around the clock, that are the humans in the loop behind Howie. And that has been hard, like in terms of recruiting the people, onboarding them, and managing them. We have three people on our team right now are at an offsite just planning like the actual onboarding for like the next cohort of people that we're bringing on, and the documentation, and like they've created simulated environments for people to like practice and all these different things that just, it's like we've ended up building most of our engineering time goes to building this product that the humans use so that we can make them incredibly efficient and incredibly accurate at these tasks. And that was like daunting. And we knew that if we went down this path, that's what we'd have to do. And so it was a tough decision. It's capital, it's time, it's energy. It's like we have to deal with human challenges that are totally different from the software challenges. And so we have two different layers of like the challenges in terms of getting the thing right. But it was so clear that it would allow us to pull forward a better product experience than was possible today. And that was really important because we wanted to serve the customers at the top of the market, who are people that really actually need a full-time executive assistant. And we want to be as good at managing their calendar as a full-time executive assistant. And to do that, we just had to find ways to fill in the gaps where the models weren't capable. And we had the capital to do it. And that's like why you raise venture capital, is to be able to take risk. And we started to see like no one else is doing this. We inevitably are going to have competitors, like might be two kids in YC that are probably smarter than us, definitely don't have kids, so they can work around the clock and so they can work more than us. And so what do we have that they don't have? And one thing is like, we actually can operationalize this. We have the capital to do it. We have managed big teams and we know how to do it. And we know how to build the software tools at scale for them to use. And so suddenly it felt like, okay, if it's right that is the path to do this, then us doing it now makes us much more defensible actually. And that has like really played out well for us so far, where we've just been growing pretty quickly since the moment we made that decision back in January.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it changed the growth trajectory.
Yeah. Last year, I mean, we were waitlist only, so we were kind of constraining the growth, but churn was a big challenge and usage retention. Like, we had people who weren't churning, but also weren't using the product that much. And from January, it was like the last 2 weeks of December over Christmas that Dave and I, mostly Dave, really actually rebuilt the entire kind of system to support the humans in the loop. And in January, we onboarded one customer, and it was a customer who was happy with the old product, but it was not working well enough for him. His name is Diego Oppenheimer. He's awesome and has since become a friend. I didn't know him at the time. And we said, we're not going to add any more customers to this until Diego is happy. And we saw his usage just skyrocket. So it's like he was telling us that he liked the product in December, but it wasn't until he had a better experience that he realized how much more he could get out of it, where it's like he was just subconsciously narrowing what he would trust Howie with, and suddenly was like, it can fully manage my calendar. And so he leaned into it so hard. And then since then, like, it's really just been, been a steady clip of like 30 to 50% month over month growth. And that's been totally just the word of mouth from customers talking about how great the experience is. And then similarly, like with the retention, like the DAU ratio has been 30 to 40% all year, which is just, for an early stage product like ours, is just really good to see in terms of how often people are actually using the thing. And so that's really exciting, because sometimes the MRR and the new customers can be harder. It's like people will come in and try anything basically. And so like seeing that they actually end up using it every single day is just really, really cool to see.
Yeah, when you said DAO mouse, you said 30, 40%. So what is that, like 2 or 3 days a week?
Basically what that tells you is that on a given day, of all the monthly active users, all the people that used it in the last 30 days, 30 to 40% of them used it that day. And every day that's true. So today, 30 to 40% of the people who used Howie in the last 30 days have used it today. And that will be true tomorrow and the next day. And so for a lot of products where that can be just a red flag, where you see it's like lots of people are interested in it. Lots of people might throw in their credit card, but the DAO is 10%, which just means most people, the vast majority of people, are just not using it every single day, which maybe means you have a useful thing with a less frequent use case, or maybe means they find it kind of interesting, but not actually like that useful. Or maybe they're all just turning out really fast.
And then I think, doesn't Waymo kind of classically had this like human in the loop model forever? And they still might. I don't actually know.
Yeah. So they do a lot of different things. So actually Cruise was really the one where, and I mean, because Cruise was doing this kind of for a long time, where we got to know lots of people there in SF back in the day, where Waymo was a little bit more quiet about it, but both of them. And yeah, I mean, the model, like anyone who lived in SF over the past decade, you saw self-driving cars driving around in the streets with sensors on the roof, but there was a person behind the wheel, and then another person on a laptop in the front seat, and the two people in the car. And
in the self-driving car, two of them.
Yeah. So it's like, so it's not a self-driving car. They were just teaching the cars how to drive, and then they do that at a much larger scale in simulated environments, where they have people in the Philippines who are in these environments, and what they're doing is creating really structured training data, finding where the models, because when the human is driving the car, the model and the sensors are still trying to predict what to do, and they can cross-reference that with what the human actually did, and then they figure out, okay, here's a scenario where our models are predicting to do this, and we actually need to do that, and it helps kind of guide them toward the right answer. And so that has been kind of a inspiration for how we do this. And same thing, it's like today, the vast majority of interactions, we want the human to spot check, because we just don't want to make a mistake. even though most of those, the thing is right. So it's like they don't have to correct anything, but it's worth the quick once over time, we will give more to autopilot. So like the very first self-driving cars that I ever saw were in San Francisco in the Sunset District, and it was like a 4 block radius in the Sunset where it's a perfect grid, and they had mapped every inch of the thing, and they had no human in the car and it could drive, but it was a 4 block radius. And then it was like the whole Sunset District, and then it was the whole city of San Francisco, and now it's like all the way down the peninsula and all over the place.
Yeah, you can get the airport now.
Yeah, exactly, at the airport. But if you see a Waymo on an icy road in Lake Tahoe, then there's going to be somebody sitting there holding the steering wheel because they're still training that. And so it's kind of a similar thing for us, where it's like we can always push out to something that is harder than the technology can do at a given time, and have a human holding the steering wheel. And we can give more and more to the models to kind of keep taking those things on. And that gives us a really nice kind of like innovation pipeline.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you just think about balancing that. Like, there's probably other cases where, I don't know, I'm just making this up, like logistics, emailing Copilot type thing, or like different industries where you kind of see there's a lot of these agents, but really should it just be like super powered humans? Like, I feel like there's like this weird almost trade off of like people trying to make it pure software, where in reality you should be like software super powered or supercharged human. I don't know. I don't know where the trade off is on that, but
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, the like you see it with employees in companies that are the ones who are using AI effectively are able to just be unbelievably productive to an unprecedented degree. And so it makes sense that it's like, can you build a fully autonomous AI accounting firm today? Probably not. But could you build like a suite of tools that allow good accountants to be insanely highly leveraged so they can be 100 times more productive than they would have been before, because like a ton of work is happening for them, but they're able to have you build the tools so they can have oversight of the actions that are taking place. And so they don't have to spend any of their time on the tedious stuff, but they still are actually like accountable for the work because they're fully in the loop and seeing it. And to me, that's like a pretty exciting area in general. And I wish there were more people doing it. And again, software people don't love to staff up a human workforce. And so everyone is kind of trying to build the fully AI accounting firm instead of like the highly leveraged tech first AI accounting firm that has phenomenal accountants that work really efficiently.
well, I feel like we almost have this graveyard of people that have kind of tried to do these in the past, like pre LLMs that haven't worked. So there's almost like a negative connotation, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're going to keep trying, and eventually someone will crack it.
Yeah, my last company I used Atrium, which was Justin Kahn's law firm. That was kind of their pitch, was like, we're getting tier 1 lawyers and we're building technology to streamline them. And the company didn't work out. And I have wondered, like, if they had just stuck with it, like they suddenly would have been able to actually streamline these lawyers to like a crazy degree. And like they didn't miss it by that much. It's like it was, I think 2019 that I was using them or something like that. And a few more years maybe could have totally changed it, because legal is definitely like one of the areas where AI has become really, really valuable kind of across the stack really quickly, because it's just words and the models are pretty good at words. And so, yeah, I do think that there's probably going to be a lot of like, I mean, and even Howie, it's like there were previous attempts to build our same product 10 years ago. I mean, the Slack one that we talked about, but even specifically like the email-based scheduling, X.AI was doing this. And so I think there are a lot of ideas that have been attempted in the past that suddenly are like super viable today.
So you think the thing you've kind of cracked, just to make sure I get this right, is with the way that the kind of the Howie product works, you're making a prediction on what you think needs to happen. Then the humans come in, and at the end, those edge cases, they say they do actually follow the prediction or they do something else. And then you look at where the deviation is and you say, okay, we need to figure out how do we make the models to actually match what the human actually did. And then that's kind of how you're tweaking and fine tuning these things at the edges to keep solving these edge cases that don't quite fully automate yet.
Yeah, but you can think about it more like a log of work, because the predictions there's a bunch of them. So it might be like, we're querying this person's calendar and that person's calendar for these dates on this time zone. And then we're creating this calendar event and this calendar event, and we're updating the user's preferences with this because they said, I no longer want to take meetings on Tuesday. And we're replying all with this message to say that we've scheduled the meeting, but we're also replying to the customer to say, hey, you told me to schedule it at this time, but also you have a flight an hour later. And so we just want so just let me know if we need to actually move it or something. So there's all of those could be predictions that then by the time the human is in the loop looking at it, they're able to kind of evaluate, was this the correct set of steps? Or if there's a mistake, was it at the very top or toward the bottom? And is it something I can just quickly tweak, or do we need to rerun this simulation with some new feedback? And yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'm excited to see now that you guys are we can talk about the launch in a second, but yeah, now that you're out there, people know you exist. I'm interested to see who can borrow in different categories.
Yeah, totally. And we're kind of laying it out there. I mean, there's tons that makes this really, really hard to build, and which is why we don't really mind kind of talking about it. And I mean, that is an oversimplification of it, but I do really think that this architecture makes a lot of sense. And I think that I won't be surprised if competitors of ours start to move in this direction, but it's also hard. It's if you are OpenAI and you're trying to roll a product out to 1 million people on day one, then can you actually staff up a human workforce, or do you need to just focus on the use cases that you think the models can do to a level of accuracy that solves the problem on day one?
Yeah. And so really quick, just before we forget about this, I wanted to ask you the name, Howie. Bold name, I mean, easy to remember. How did you come up with the name initially when you started everything?
Yeah, so we talked about, Dave and I we knew we wanted a human name because we had talked to lots of potential customers, and we knew that the idea of Howie kind of presenting as a human made a ton of sense. And we wanted the company name to match that, so that it's not we're building two brands at once of this company name and then the assistant name. And so that was very clear, which is interesting because most of our competitors have gone totally different directions with kind of without giving these things a human name. But then there's Siri and Alexa and plenty of precedent there. We knew we wanted a name that felt friendly, which is kind of ambiguous, but kind of, when you see it. And we wanted a name where if somebody mentions it in a conversation, then the other person who heard it can actually spell it correctly when they go type it into Google. And we wanted 2 syllables. We wanted to make sure the .ai domain was available. And we also were checking for the .com to at least, we weren't going to buy the .com on day one, but we wanted to make sure it wasn't some a domain that had been actively in use for many years and was would never be gettable if we did decide we want it. And a couple of others, I guess we weren't totally sure on gender, but we did feel a male name kind of would be cool because so many of these virtual assistants with names have had female names, and it's why not kind of switch it up? And as we've gone with secretary as our branding, that also kind of helps because some people did find the secretary thing to be kind of a callback to an era that we don't necessarily want to go back to, but it's well, Howie's also a male name, and also we're building this so that you don't have to have the 1950s secretaries. And so a male name works really well in that way. And yeah, it's just memorable. We had a bunch of parameters. We were building this list of names that kind of fit those. And then Dave sent me this meme that is about a guy named Howie Do It. And it's a screenshot of his Facebook profile with the Montel Jordan song, "This Is How We Do It," playing in the background. And immediately that was at the top of our list. We're just that makes so much sense. And so we got Howie.ai. Now we have Howie.com, and now Howie has been seen by hundreds of thousands of people and scheduled tons and tons of meetings. And so everyone in Silicon Valley knows Howie now.
Yeah, I'm looking at, is it this guy? He's almost it's a selfie in a truck. He's got sunglasses and a wife beater on, a black.
Yep, Howie Do It. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at. I'll throw it up on the screen so people can see it. We'll throw a link in the show notes. There's a lot of videos here. People made a lot of videos about this one. I didn't see this. That's awesome. And then, so we mentioned, so you launched. You guys kind of I mean, you weren't really in stealth because people were using it. You were talking about it, but you did the canonical launch video, which is actually pretty cool. So maybe talk about what all went into that.
we had not like announced our seed round, so we wanted to kind of do that. We also had, for the longest time, we had a website that we built, a homepage that we built in like 3 days, really early on, and we had not updated it at all, and it had like maybe 10 words on it total. It was like Howie is an email-based scheduling assistant, I think, and a couple of other words beyond that, but it was like didn't have much in terms of like social proof. We have all these customers who want to talk about how much they love Howie. It didn't have much branding that was firm in any way. It was just kind of, I don't know, it was nice enough and it worked, but there was that. And then we had a wait list for the longest time, and we wanted to actually go to general availability so anyone can sign up and use Howie. And so all of those ended up being kind of the things that we launched. Was we announced the funding, we roll out a new brand that we worked really hard on that we think will kind of carry us into the next era of the company. And we rolled out general availability. We still don't have like a free trial option, so you have to pay to use the product, but because that filtering has just like always worked really well for us so far. Everyone who's ever used Howie has paid upfront to do it. And it's obviously like we could optimize more for growth over time with free trials and freemium and all those things, but it's been great to filter to the people that really need this product. And so we've been working on the website and the brand for a while and getting ready to roll that out. And then as we were getting closer to the launch, I was like, okay, we probably have to do a launch video if we're going to do this. We've put so much energy into the product and the brand and the customer stories that like a video is going to be the way that we actually make it pop. And so the launch, we were planning for September 22nd. And I think it was like September 5th. So we worked with an agency called New Kid that's in Toronto. They're awesome. They did our brand and our website and everything, and they're the best. And I think it was like September 5th that I texted Matt at New Kid and I was like, I think we should do a video. Can you work on this with me? And he turned around like in a day, this like presentation that they did for us of like 10 different ideas for videos, literally 10 different, completely different ideas all across the board. One was like something with we get Montel Jordan to do this is how we do it. And a bunch of different ideas. But one of them was the return of the secretary, because we had already gone with, the homepage was already saying Howie is the people's secretary. And so we already were leaning into that. And the reason for that is there are 10,000 assistants in the world, and every AI product is called assistant or copilot. And secretary is a word that more accurately describes what Howie does, because it's like administrative tasks like scheduling, not everything that an executive assistant does, which could be more kind of chief of staff type level things. And it's a word that everybody in the world knows and no other company was using. And so we could like just lean into it and own it. So we knew we wanted to do that. And so then the return to the secretary video made sense to just lean in harder to it. And so by, I think September 12th or 11th was the day that we signed the contract. So like basically we were like, we want to do this concept. And so then Matt was like, okay, I know a production house and we'll talk to them and we'll see. And so they had like, we had very little time. I think that normally these things take a bunch more time than this. But anyway, so they had a director in mind. The director already had an idea for an actress to play the secretary, which was super helpful because like the casting call part of this would be like one of the most time consuming pieces. And they had her really quickly send like a self tape of herself reading the lines. And we thought she was fantastic. And so that was a really key piece. But then, ultimately it was like 10 days before launch that we signed the contract to do it. And so then like 3 days later, they shot it. They had to lock down the location and everything. They found a great location in Toronto. And then we got delivery of the final video, I think, like the night before the launch. So it was all like a kind of frantic race to make it happen, but they totally delivered. Everyone delivered. And it went really great. So we were very happy with it.
What was the name of the firm you said you work for to do that though? We'll just give them a quick shout out.
Yes, newkid.services.
Newkid.services. Okay, cool. I'll throw a link in the show notes if people want to check that out. Maybe what we'll do, I'll do a screen share and we'll watch it.
It's time to bring back the secretary.
What?
Hold on. Hear me out. We're bringing back the secretary. Not the job title, not the dress code. None of that 1950s bull.
Hello? But the poise, precision,
the prestige.
Someone else is managing my calendar?
You get a secretary.
You get a secretary.
You get a secretary. No, I don't have a pen. I have a pencil. No more triple bookings or battling for bio breaks. We're not scheduling meetings to schedule meetings about meetings that are soon to be scheduled. Hi, I'm calling about the meeting for the meeting.
Thanks for setting the meeting.
It's a secretary for all of us. Yeah, even secretaries. Meet Howie, the return of the secretary. Things got a little crazy back there, didn't they? Ooh.
I loved it because it's just so, I feel like a lot of the launch videos you kind of see right now, they're like, I don't know, how would you describe the current like meta of launch videos?
I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of different ones. And like, I think that we wanted something that felt tied to the brand and to the product. We didn't feel like it needed to be like a whole kind of like product rundown, because that is like one category of product launch videos, is just like you talk about the product. And we felt like we want people to come check out the homepage. And so it's okay if they're left with questions about, okay, that video is funny, but what is this? And and so we wanted it to be connected to the brand and to the product experience, but we didn't feel like we needed to sell the features in the video. And I think we did a good job of that. I mean, in terms of like, we got about 1.2 million views on the video across the different posts that we had, and it converted to a ton of customers and a ton of revenue. So we were like really happy with that conversion. Like, it would have been great if it got 10 million views, but in terms of like how did it, like, it blew our expectations out of the water in terms of customer growth. And so that was great. And so I think it did a good job of teasing it. And it was just interesting enough that you go check out the website, and then you get to see like tons of customer testimonials, and we talk about the product more specifically in lots of ways there, and have a brand that we're really proud of there. And so, yeah, so I think that, I don't know, the other videos, I'm trying to think of other ones. I mean, Clearly, obviously, is like completely crushing it, and I love their videos. I don't know how well they do in terms of converting, but I'm guessing that they probably do pretty well. And then there's like the Friend launch, which like is mega viral, like on a scale beyond anything that, like, yeah, or at least an order of magnitude bigger than ours. Does it sell the product? I'm not totally sure. And so that was really important to us, is that we actually like focus it on the business and not like just getting the views for the sake of the views. And what else? I don't know. I mean, we introduced a character. Some people do these like high production videos, but it's like kind of just the founder talking about their thing. But we felt like it was cool to introduce a character who we now might end up using as kind of a recurring character in some other videos potentially. And so that idea was fun. And I don't know. Yeah, I think that like what I was most happy with is that it was a very short turnaround time, and we produced something that like feels really, really polished. So that one of the kind of, they had a few different inspirations, but one of them was like the like, I don't know what you call them, but like the cutaway videos in The Big Short, where they would do like a short like anecdote. And yeah, and I can't remember what they are specifically, but they're like these quick cuts kind of, and cool camera movements, and the idea was just like super fast pace and really high velocity. And the actress that we used was just so good. She had like her energy, what I was envisioning from the script and all the ideas just was way less energy than what she ended up like bringing to the table. So it's like, the energy was just phenomenal. And so anyway, I'm really happy with it, and I'm happy that it converted to customers, because like obviously if it just flopped altogether, that would be the worst thing. But also if it like went viral but didn't convert to customers, then it's like, was it worth the energy we put into it? And so we're just thrilled that it like led to a huge increase in our customer base, and tons of new people who now in the couple of weeks since have been giving us tons of feedback and loving the product, and the signups are still rolling in. So that's been really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting in the sense of like, everyone kind of knows what a secretary is, for like an executive assistant. So you don't necessarily, like, to your point about how some people like demo the product, like if you just say like, hey, it's a secretary, like it's an executive assistant, you're just like, oh yeah, I know what that is. And then I feel like the biggest question is, okay, but it's AI, like, does it actually work? Right? Like, I've used all these tools, they're all kind of sus. So it's like, go to the website and it's like, oh, there's just a bunch of customer testimonials about how well it works. it's like, all right, cool, I'll try it out. So it's like an interesting, like, I think it's almost like you need to position your marketing depending on how mature a category is, or like how well the buyer understands, and then like what their questions probably are based on, like, you give them some general awareness, like, all right, what's their next step in terms of discovery? Is it like do more research? Is it just like convert immediately? Is it like they need some social proof? Do they need like know the price, etc.? So
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that like the social proof is just, I mean, for anything, I think social proof is really key. And we are excited that we have so many awesome people that, I mean, we had like way more than we even could include customers who just were like thrilled to provide testimonials. And so that's been really awesome. And I think that, yeah, it's like ultimately our job is to just get people interested enough that they have an idea what it is. And then the customer testimonials do the heavy lifting of like, okay, if it works for them, then it's going to work for me.
yeah, I feel like social proof is it's like underrated, but also like fairly rated. Like I think a lot of people, like, you kind of realize how important it is just to like have a couple other people tell you, just to like get you across the finish line, really with like anything, whether it's like buying a product or even like listening to a podcast. If like you see 3 people say like, oh, that episode with Austin Turner talking about Howie, it was so good, you got to listen. Someone will be like, all right, fine. I don't listen to podcasts, but I'll give this one a try.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the reason that you don't see a lot of social proof in many launches is not that they like don't think it's useful. It's really hard to like have customers that like love your product so much that they're out there amplifying. And that's like what made us so thrilled about the launch, was that the amplification, more than our investors, it was our customers who like came out and were in the comments, like the LinkedIn, especially the comments in the LinkedIn posts that we had are it's like just comment after comment of people talking about how much they love the product. And so that was just like super exciting to us, that it felt like there was real substance to the launch of like, we are actually making these customers very happy. We're making people's lives easier because they don't have to deal with something they had to deal with before. And they are like proudly shouting from the rooftops about that. So we were really thrilled about that part.
And so when you do a launch like that, like I remember, maybe I'm in like a special group chat with you where you're showing us like, I remember actually, I think I was at Disney World when you're talking about filming, like how fast it went. Like, I think you sent me a draft and like watched it like 2 days later, but it was like finished or something like that. Cause I was at Disney World, I was like a little bit disconnected. And then like, so when you're launching a product like that, like do you involve the customers like, hey, we just launched, like, tell us what you think of it? Or do you just put out there in the ether and see what happens? Like, is there a good way to guide those and make sure they go a little bit better?
There was customers who had testimonials, obviously I was like sending those to say, hey, like, we'd love to do a testimonial about with you. Can you give us some content for it? Or are you interested? Whatever. And so those folks definitely got like a peek at some of the stuff. And then some other customers who are like founders that I think are great at marketing, I was just sending them the kind of like work in progress website. The video, very few people saw the video. You saw it on the group text and a handful of other people, but not many people saw the video, partly because it's like we were pretty locked in on the direction. So when we were like riffing on the script and the kind of concept, I was sending it to a bunch of different friends and getting their thoughts. But then like once we were kind of locked in on it, it was like the types of feedback. You don't want someone to be like, well, what if she says this instead of that? And it's like, oh, we already shot it. So we're just like, we're at the editing phase. It's like, do you have feedback on the color correction or something? So like that was, I mean, we did send it to a few people though. Like one of the early cuts was like a little bit long and we got that feedback from some people. And so we kind of cut it. And so there was some there, but the brand and the web page was definitely like a ton. And like Sophia Amoruso, she's provided a ton of feedback as we were building this brand. And so just like an ongoing kind of text thread where I was sending her some of the early web designs and things. And because with the brand, we also kind of went in a pretty like novel direction, which is that it's very people first. So we did a photo shoot with actual models that are like kind of laced across the entire homepage. And we felt like everybody in SaaS and productivity just has these like dark mode, purple gradient homepages that are all they're doing is showing you like screenshots or like kind of illustrations of features. And it's just like all just like features. And we felt like the experience we hear from customers is that they love Howie because it is like it engages like a human. They like that there are humans in the loop because they can trust it more because there's humans, and they like that it is helping them with connecting with humans, and whether it's like customers or investors, and there's just like so much kind of humanness to all of it. And we felt like, why don't we then make the brand feel human? And so some of the folks that we sent the early brand idea to, people, they were like, this looks like a makeup brand or something.
It kind of does, yeah.
Yeah, it totally does. But we're like, yeah, that's fine. Like, we think our customers are awesome, and we want to showcase like the vibe that we feel like our customers have, which is just these great people who are real people and who are awesome. And we felt like photography was a much better way of doing that than like some illustrated and like figures or characters or whatever, or just like screenshots of like Howie writing an email. And
yeah, like if you did show screenshots of the product, it's like, oh, cool, a screenshot of Superhuman, a screenshot of Gmail, like it's like the meeting has been scheduled. It's like, it's a little bit harder to show much. I guess the original version of the website, though, I do remember you had like a calendar and like lots of blocks, and you like kind of played around with like animations, like as you scrolled, of like how like it was kind of like scheduling. But again, it's like, I feel like to your point, it's like a makeup brand. Like it does feel a little sexier in a way.
Yeah, it just feels elevated. And that's like the thing, is that people feel like a baller when they use Howie, because it's like they used to have to do this thing themselves and someone's doing it for them now. And so it's accessible. It's not like it's like a high-end luxury good that is inaccessible, but it's also kind of baller. And actually, one of the analogies that I used with New Kid, the agency, early on was Uber, like early days Uber, because it was like at the time you had yellow taxis, which were like dirty. They probably wouldn't show up if you called them, but they might. And like they're just like all these things that are like not great about that experience. And then there was like a private chauffeur, which was like this baller experience that almost nobody has, but the people who do, just it's amazing. And then Uber came in as like they positioned the brand pretty really like kind of luxury and high end, but it was also accessible, and it was called everyone's private driver, and was their like slogan early on. And so it was like taking this luxury out of reach thing, making it accessible, but still kind of baller. And that was like one of the analogies that I had early on of like what I wanted Howie to kind of stand for, is like the executive assistant in this luxury thing that's inaccessible for most of us. But we all know it's pretty baller. And then the alternative is Calendly, which like is a meme, basically, how like kind of inefficient and like it is the taxi. And we are pulling that baller experience forward in a way where it's accessible to everybody. And that doesn't mean we need to like cheapen it and make it feel more like a taxi. It can still be baller and elite and have really polished branding and feel really kind of luxury, but it's also accessible.
Yeah, two things that the way you said reminds me of is like when you get introduced to someone and there's like, they add their EA. Some people, you might be like annoyed, like, oh, this person doesn't have time for me or whatever. With Howie, like it jumps on pretty quickly and it's like responds fast, but also like there's almost like the power element of like, let me add my EA. Like I'm so like, there's almost this like you made it in life if you have an EA or like a secretary. So it's like you're like, I kind of hate the word democratize, but you're like democratizing and just allowing more people to have an EA. It's kind of like in between of like sending someone a link and then actually having a human assistant that, you're paying, possibly six figures all in of comp, of taxes, Social Security, health insurance, salary, etc. And it's interesting. I remember when I first met you and was investing, I was like, I don't know, man, Calendly, like a better Calendly, like is this really an opportunity? But I think in 2023, Calendly did like 270 million in ARR or something like that. It's probably a lot higher now. And this is almost like a little bit of a more fully baked version. So like the opportunity is actually a lot bigger maybe than someone would think just from initial glance.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like even just that, like Calendly is a great business and it's awesome. And it solves one thing really well, which is like find a time for a meeting. But when you talk to executive assistants about the calendar tasks that they do, find a time for a meeting is like one of a litany of other things. And so the scale of a business that just solves the calendar entirely for millions of professionals, I think can be at least an order of magnitude bigger than Calendly. And then it's like, have we built the framework and the brand and the trust and all these things that allow us to go from just like, we are just a scheduling assistant to an assistant that does many, many things for professionals. And we aren't in a hurry to go from one thing to the next because again, it's like nailing any problem that we purport to solve, we want to truly solve to a fantastic degree. And so we're not in a rush to layer on like features for the sake of features, but over time, there's no reason for us to be constrained to scheduling and calendar over the long term.
Yeah, well, to the point of time, it's like time is money, right? Like that's the ramp slogan. Say
time is money, save both. I love that.
There's probably like some play on words with how we like time is money. Save. You could say save both with Howie. I don't know. Obviously, you can't steal the slogan exactly.
That's like one of my favorite lines of copywriting I've encountered in many years. It's like time is money is colloquialism. So it's not, they're not breaking new ground there, but it's like, and just save both, adding two words to it. It's like just so beautifully simple and resonant and like every many marketing slogans over many decades have tried to sell save time or save money or save both of them. And it's amazing that they found a tagline with that just in hindsight feels like it was just sitting there to be grabbed by anybody.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned there's probably opportunities to expand over time. Like, what does this look like? Like, what does Howie look like over the long term? Like, I'm talking 10 years, 20 years in the future. I don't know. I don't know how far out you think about this stuff, but what do you think the big kind of opportunity is and what the product might look like?
We try to focus most of our energy on what is right in front of us. And so it's like, we think a lot about like, if we achieve what is right in front of us, which doors does that open and where might those lead? But we try not to obsess too much because I think it's really common in startups to be way too focused on like what your company is going to look like when it's doing $100 billion in revenue and you haven't actually built something that people want to use for $10. And so we do really try to focus on like what is right in front of us and how can we better serve the customers we have and have end the day with more customers than we started with every day. And like that's really like where most of our energy is. But we do think about like, where does this go? And I think there are different paths. Like you could see it being a kind of single player use case where it's like all of our customers are individuals using Howie and it spans industries and like consumer use cases and professional use cases, but it's just this like super assistant for the individual. Or you could see it being this like calendaring, scheduling product that's sold into 10,000 person organizations where it's like the assistant is a part of it. And then there's also all this architecture around like helping a company know where time is being spent and which meetings are happening and which aren't happening and how many people are in the different meetings and lots of different things around just like creating efficiency in a large team with the calendar. I don't know really at this point. Like I really think the technology we're building could work really well in both of those paths. And there probably are 10 other paths that I haven't thought about. I think we're excited about both. We definitely are excited about like even without having built many team features, we're still seeing a lot of adoption among teams like Ramp. Since we were just talking about them, Ramp's recruiting team uses Howie and that has been really awesome because that's like one of our first like kind of larger teams that's using it. But we're seeing organizations where we grow from 1 person to 3 people to 7 people to 10 people. And we haven't built much functionality that like kind of incentivizes that, but we are starting to. And so over time, I think the main thing that is like a clear North Star is we think that professionals of all sorts spend a ton of time on meta work, which is just like work about work. So it could be scheduling, it could be like setting reminders to follow up on something. It could be like reviewing notes from your calls or anything like that. There's just like a ton of things that all of us spend time on that is meta work. And there's also a lot of meta work that like lives in our brain at all times. So we're constantly thinking like, I have to follow up on that with that prospect. And do I have enough time after this call to get to the next, to get to my like coffee meeting this afternoon? And do I like, I don't know, did I I got that customer support email over the weekend, and I think I've like totally dropped the ball on responding to that. And there's like all these things that just live in our head, and if Howie can just be plucking those things out of people's brains so that they can have the confidence that the thing's not going to get forgotten and is going to get taken care of, then that's great. And so we're more interested in solving the meta work than like building an assistant that does the actual like your actual job for you, if that makes sense. And anything that you could classify as meta work is probably something that we are intending to solve for professionals over time.
Okay. Yeah, that's something to look forward to, I guess. There's a lot you can do. As a customer, there's like a lot of things that Howie could probably do for you.
Yes, totally. And like it'll start with like just breaking out of email. So we're building Howie for SMS right now, which I'm really excited about, and will be like just a much quicker way for people to interact with the product. And we eventually will have Microsoft Outlook support, hopefully by the end of this year, but we'll see. We've kind of like there's enough demand in the Google ecosystem that we haven't been in a huge rush, but we also get emails like literally 10 times a day asking us for Microsoft Outlook support. So it will unlock a lot of potential new customers. And so that's really valuable. But
I mean, Outlook is enterprise. Like when you get Outlook, you're going to start signing those like 1,000 seat, 10,000 seat deals. So that might be valuable.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's tons of market opportunity there. We don't really have like a good offering for 10,000 people to use Howie today, but as we go, like, yeah, I mean, we get interest from any number of like company size, industry, like people are reaching out, and we just have had to kind of like keep the blinders on of like, we serve people who need to book a lot of external meetings and have a lot of pain in doing that. And that's like just limiting, because we want to serve many, many more people than that over time. But it's allowed us to have like a ton of focus on just better serving those people and understanding that kind of need and just nailing it. So that's where we are now. But yeah, but we'll add Microsoft for sure soon.
Yeah. And actually, I meant to ask this earlier, but I mean, you mentioned we're growing 30%, 40% a month. Like, what's the current state of the business? Is there like a public or even like a private, like you're only saying it on this podcast, but like what's like currently kind of like the size of things, kind of like the state of everything?
We went into the launch with over 1,000 paying customers, and we have grown our customer base a lot since that launch. So that's really exciting. And what else can I talk about? Oh, Howie's booking well over 5,000 meetings a week for our customers. So that's a pretty exciting metric. And he's interacting with tens of thousands of people every month on email. You see it in the investor updates. We just have been growing.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I mean, I don't want to be the one to say. I want you to be able to say what.
I know. I think those are the main like kind of public numbers right now.
Okay, so actually going back to like the early days, you kind of like you talked about 2015, the Slack bot or like the Slack channel. You kind of skipped ahead like 8-9 years later, but there's a period in the middle. I think one of the most interesting things you did was you worked for Jason Calacanis, and you said people are always curious. What was that like? And I am also curious. What was that like working for Jason?
Yeah, everyone always wants to know. I very regularly meet people who immediately, when they learn that I worked for Jason, they want to know.
He's good at what he does, obviously. Like, it's not like an accident.
Oh yeah, so he's a really close friend. I was gonna be like, he's a fucking moron. No. Jason and I definitely like would have pretty intense arguments and things. And I think what I really respect about Jason is that there are a lot of people like, so our entire industry lives on Twitter. And I meet a lot of people who I've gotten to know their Twitter personality over time. And then I meet them in person. And it's pretty common to feel like a disconnect then where you realize like there was this fully kind of manicured persona that somebody created around themselves. And what I respect about Jason is that he literally like lays himself out there and it is actually like he is actually like the person that you see online, and so you might love him, you might hate him, but like that it is I respect the kind of ability to actually be yourself online, because there's a lot of the algorithms and the kind of social norms and all these things pull us to try to like present a manicured version of ourselves. And so it's actually pretty hard to just genuinely like be yourself out there. And especially if being yourself is a polarizing person that's going to piss a bunch of people off. And so I really respect that. And I definitely learned a ton from Jason about investing and like a lot about him kind of. So he when back then, this was like 2016, he was like studying constantly. Like I would get in his car and he would like sit there and make me watch like 30 minutes of Charlie Rose interviewing someone, or Oprah interviewing someone, or Howard Stern interviewing someone. And he was like literally like studying the tapes of these interviews. He'd watch the same interviews over and over and over again. And at the time I was like, do you really learn anything from this? And now I can see, like, once the All In podcast came out and he had to like serve as this pretty challenging role as moderator for a bunch of really powerful personalities that have like all want to hear themselves talking, and including himself also. And so like I can see that work that he was putting in for like years and years and years and studying the art of moderating conversations and interviewing people is like actually working. And it helps that he doesn't mind being the kind of punching bag in a lot of the conversations. So that's all cool. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting. He definitely, like, as you would expect if you followed him online, like, can be brash. And so we definitely had like some pretty heated arguments where we disagree about things, because both of us are pretty passionate people. And so there's some funny experience and there are memories there. But like overall, I think that it was fun to work for him, and like he's been the first investor in 2 of my companies now. And so he's definitely a person who has deep loyalty, and I've felt that. And so like, it's cool that from the first day that I ever met him, I have felt like he truly like has my back. And so like, as much as he could be a dick or he's polarizing, he says all sorts of things online that I like may or may not agree with, or that I'm just like, why are you saying this? And so there's all of those things. But at the end of the day, it's like you don't often find somebody who you feel like actual real loyalty from and to. And so, yeah, so he's a good friend.
And did you learn a lot about media from him? Because he really runs like pretty interesting, really like a media company.
Yeah, totally. It really is more of a media company than anything. And a ton. And like he's been doing it forever. I mean, he was like talking print magazines in New York and Silicon Alley something. I can't remember what it was called.
But
like
90s,
so,
right? Like late 90s.
So he's been like doing this forever, and he knows everybody, and he's seen so much. And so that is like one of the things is that I started to learn is I would often think he didn't know what he was talking about, and sometimes realize that I was right, but more times realize like, oh, actually he's like really done this shit, and he knows what he's doing. And yeah, so like with media specifically, like I really think he has a good grasp on how to do it. And I mean, even just he was investing in video content for his podcast at a time when everyone was just doing audio only, and like he would have cameras for do every single podcast interview in person, never remote and never audio only. And that was just like ahead of the curve. And now he has a back catalog going back 16 years or something of these video podcasts. And so, yeah, all sorts of things like that, where it felt like he had a pretty good grasp of like where the media world was going and what was kind of resonating. And then also had a willingness to just kind of keep going forward, because like you see a lot of people kind of try to start a podcast or start some sort of form of media, and then just like when it doesn't become the next big thing in 3 weeks, then they just kind of like fizzle out and abandon it. And there's a lot of value in just like continuing to do the next episode and the next episode, 2 episodes a week. You just keep going, and that over time like really does compound. And so the determination is definitely a big one too.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I've been doing my podcast for like 2.5 years at this point. It's almost like unpredictable. Like I'll be like, oh, this one's gonna do so good, and then I'll post it and it's like the worst one of the year. Or it'll be like one like I mean, honestly, when I go back and look at the data, like I could not have predicted what the better episodes would have been. It's like that with all content, like even with Twitter. Like some of my most viral tweets, they got like 10 million views. There's like a typo because I like posted on my phone really quick and it did like autocorrect. I didn't realize it. And then there's some where like, you spend like an hour on it and it gets like 1% of what you thought it was going to get. So it's like a lot of it's just like volume. Like it's just shots on goal. Like it's just staying in the game, keep putting stuff out there. I think that's just generally the thing with like really like media or like the internet or content on the distribution side is like a lot of these algorithms, the way they work, like there's like almost like unbounded upside. Like, right? Like there's like 100 million people that might potentially see the content. And it's just like figuring out like how do you get in front of all those people, but you never know what's going to work. And so if you're only posting once, say you post once a month, right? Versus if you post once a week, once a day, once an hour, just like the more you're putting things, the more shots on goal you have, the more surface area, like chances that people see your stuff. I guess you got to balance like not being annoying also.
Yeah, I mean, that is tough.
Yeah, it's like just post about what you're doing, tweet about what you're doing, put content out there that's like natural to you, that's easy, that like kind of fits in with like what you're good at and like what your unique advantage is. And I don't know, I feel like not enough people think about it that way.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it applies to like anything, building a product and building a business. It's like you can get so distracted in where you want to be or in like how difficult the challenges in front of you are. And for us, like every day of building this company has been just like, can we get one rung higher on this ladder? I mean, we chose a problem that's like definable of like scheduling. And so it's like, can we be early on? It was the only thing was like, can we be better at scheduling today than we were yesterday? Now we have a business, we have customers and all these other things, and so it's like the same thing I said before. How can we end today with more customers than yesterday and end today with better solving the problems that our current customers have today than yesterday? And it's like just doing that, then the compounding kind of starts to happen. And so it can really apply to anything. I think that the idea of just like, you just need to move forward a little bit every day.
Yeah. Well, so speaking about compounding, I know you've had just like pretty steady, continuing to grow product kind of. It's interesting when it's like you think about how someone maybe discovers Howie. It's probably in their email inbox. Like that's maybe the place they discover it. Do you remember how did you like first get people to start using it? Was it just you know a lot of people and you're like, hey, I'm building this thing, check it out. Kind of took off from there. What was kind of the process?
Yeah, so we like put up a wait list early on and people started to sign up, and like I had it in my Twitter bio, and there were a few people early on who started using it and then like tweeted about it, and that would lead to like, because at the time the product was not very good, but it was good as if you like, there was at least like a 50% chance that your first 3 interactions would be fantastic. And so then that people would lead to people tweeting about it. And then eventually they would like run into the issues. And so, but it would like, so that was enough to validate the demand. And then the waitlist kind of started to grow. And so then we would like kind of look at who's on the wait list and go reach out to people. And we have a couple of the very first customers we ever onboarded are still using the product today, which is remarkable because they really like rode through some of them who are friends that's still remarkable. Like Alex Cohen, for example, used it all the way through and was not like dissatisfied with the old product. But then once we rebuilt it, was just like, this is mind-blowingly better. And like, I can use it for everything now. But there's some folks that I don't even know who were in the early cohorts who have continued using it. But yeah, the word of mouth definitely is a huge aspect of it. So it's like people see Howie in the inbox. We don't make Howie's emails an ad for Howie. We try to be really subtle in that regard. So it's not like there's a link to the website or anything in those emails. And so it is really subtle, but then also just people that are having a great experience. The reason the word of mouth growth really kicked in January of this year is that the product experience became something that people just really want to talk about. And so that's a huge part of it. And then, yeah, there's been some like viral moments and things along the way. But again, it's like, it's just this steady process of like, we went into September with 1,000 customers and we want to end September with more customers than that. And now we're in October with the number of customers that we have. And we want to end this month with even more. And so it's like, we can try to manufacture viral moments, or we could do like a marketing campaign or whatever else we want to do. But ultimately it's like not trying to catch lightning in a bottle. It's just like, how can we reach a few more people today?
But you were telling me the other day about you had this really interesting strategy of doing your pitch deck that kind of unique kind of like simplifies the process, but you think it works pretty well. What's your strategy for making a deck?
Yeah, so I've looked at a lot of like DocSend metrics. There's DocSend, when people send a pitch deck, I suggest sending a pitch deck via PDF, not via DocSend link, but I've looked at a lot of DocSend metrics and gotten to glean a really interesting fact that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, which is that the vast majority of people you send your pitch deck to are going to click through all the way to the end. They're going to make it to the end. But the vast majority of people who you send your pitch deck to are never going to spend more than 3 seconds on a single slide. So if you have 100 slides or if you have 10 slides, they're going to go 3 seconds per slide all the way through to the end. And so what you can do with that information is not optimize for how do I get less slides, but optimize for how do I get less information on a given slide, because you get 3 seconds, whether it's your 20th slide in the deck or your third slide in the deck, you're going to get 3 seconds of someone's attention. And so more slides with less information is just by far the best thing to do. And so basically the strategy that I have is write it like a thread of tweets. So you create bullet points. You should have not even 140 characters of words per slide, like 8 words per slide or something. But the shortest possible thing, have a narrative arc that pulls people through. So I don't love the kind of like standard templates of problem, solution, whatever. Like you need to hit all of those things, but you should have a story that gets somebody like to want to go to the next one. And then again, put an amount of information that can actually be digested in 3 seconds. Because even your friends that you send it to for feedback are going to scroll through 3 seconds per slide. And someone who's serious is going to later maybe go spend more time and look at and really like read through each slide slowly. But to even get the chance for the slow one, you have to have passed the 3 second test. And so don't worry about like I've seen some people recommend like make sure you have less than 10 slides because you don't have much of someone's time. And they're correct that you don't have much of their time, but they're incorrect that you should jam like a ton of content into 10 slides. You should just stretch it out farther because they're going to give you 3 seconds for every slide and then they're going to keep paging through. And so that's my advice, is create a slide deck that has very, very, very short bits of content, has some narrative arc that pulls me through to the next slide, and get all the points that you want across, but never try to make like more than one single nugget of information fit onto a single slide.
So I was just thinking about it, I was like, I need a problem slide, I need a solution slide, I need a market slide. Like the problem slide might be 5 slides and it's just one sentence with like a graphic or whatever for each almost like phase or setup of the problem to get you to, by the 5th slide, it's like, holy shit, I get the problem.
Yep, 100%.
The next set is like, yeah, it might be like a couple screenshots of the way you solve the problem, or like sentences on how you solve the problem, and like however you need to find the market opportunity. Like maybe it's a couple slides. And again, it's like just really, because to your point, people don't read. Like a lot of the times people will be like, there'll be like tons of text everywhere and you just read like the header or like what's the most bolded image or like thing that stands out.
Nobody is reading a paragraph of text on the deck that you send, and people spend a lot of time on those paragraphs and every word of them, and then nobody reads it. So instead, figure out what you can do in 3 words and in 4 words and get that whole paragraph, but just stretch it across more slides in punchy, short sentences that actually tell a story, and then people will actually read it. And otherwise, like they're just going to keep moving. So even 3 seconds might be generous. You're not going to spend a lot of time per slide. So you want to get the least amount of information possible. And then obviously you want to only include the most important information, and you want it to feel like a teaser. You want someone to leave afterwards wanting more. And so you got to kind of cut it before they're fully satisfied, and you want them to have questions because then they have to take the call to answer the questions. There's a lot of things beyond that, but it's like, just never try to fit more than 0.2 ideas per slide or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's good. It's a good strategy to think about. And you've kind of mentioned before in the past when we've been talking that like people tend to optimize for growth too soon. I mean, I guess there's like different things you can mean by that, but I guess why do you think that's the case? Because don't you want growth? You want ARR to go up super fast and like you get a higher valuation, raise money, right? Like, isn't that good?
Yeah, so I do think it's good, but I think if what you're trying to build is durable value, there are many proven ways to kind of growth hack a product and to optimize your push notifications to get people back to it and to do all the things that make the metrics look the way that you want them to look. And I've done all those things in the past, and I've experienced building a product that has all the growth levers kind of optimized and tuned, and it's still not growing. And that really sucks, because then it's like, okay, we tried all the things and still nobody cares. With this product, I don't know if it's the nature of it being in the inbox. I think that's part of it. And then maybe the clarity that we've had since day one about the problem we're solving, to where we never had time to work on growth hacks, because instead we just have had to work on like fixing the problems with the product. And that continues to kind of be the case today. And so we've never had time to build out we literally don't even send emails. You sign up as a new customer, and we don't send you emails to remind you to use the product or teach you how to use it. You get one email when you first signed up, and we're going to add drip campaigns that go out, and we're going to add more like kind of user education, like here's how VCs use Howie, here's how founders use Howie, and all that type of documentation and stuff, which like admittedly it's not ideal that we don't have those things. But the thing that is ideal, because as a result of that, is like we've just lived in the ground truth of, is this product useful? So you sign up for Howie, you don't ever need to come back to our website again. So you use the product by going into your email client and remembering to type in Howie's email address. And we don't send you a push notification to encourage you to do that. We don't there's no bookmark that you save in your browser. There's, you don't get Howie doesn't just like email you. Actually, now he does do email you proactively for like conflicts and things. So we've I guess add some of that proactive stuff, but that even 6 months ago didn't exist. And so there is I guess some proactive things, but for a while there was none. And so the retention, the word of mouth growth, the usage numbers, and all of those things looking so great was really kind of validating for us, because we're like, we are in the ground truth. We're not tricking people into coming back, and we haven't optimized. We're not pulling any of the levers that we could pull over time. So over time you want to, for sure. But if you genuinely want to be intellectually honest with yourself about, is my product valuable to customers, then peeling away all of the growth hacks is a good way to actually do that if you're willing to. But it's hard, because it's like you want the numbers to go up as fast as possible, and you want it to look like you've solved the problem, not that you are solving the problem. But we have treated it as an intellectual experiment from day one of, can we make this product useful to people? And that for us really, really helped us get to a product that people actually want to use, because there was no smoke and mirrors in the metrics.
So it's almost like just don't even focus on growth at all. And if the product is growing, that's probably a good sign.
Yeah, the best products in the world grow themselves. Yeah, so it's like, why should you have to spend a bunch of time on the sharing functionality or the referrals, or why should you even have a referral program for a product that's in the early stages, pre-product market fit? And why should you spend any time on that if the product is not so good that it's growing by word of mouth? And so if you can just every day try to get closer to a product that people can't stop talking about, then your time is much better spent, I think.
Yeah. And I guess too, the way that the product works, it's sort of like a multiplayer product, because in order to use it, there's somebody else there that sees it. So that probably helps a little bit on the growth side, is just generally speaking, I'm sure you get people that sign up is like, oh, what's this Howie thing? Like Howie.ai or Howie.com. I don't know what URL, or someone might obviously use the custom URL. So maybe they don't even see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people don't know. One that I saw the other day that was hilarious is a white label Howie. So the person thought it was a human, but the person went through the whole scheduling experience, and I think they had to reschedule the meeting. So there's some tricky element of it, and the person was really impressed, and they sent an email to the Howie customer and to the white label Howie saying, do you have any friends? I really need someone like this to do my scheduling. So they thought it was a human and were trying to hire the friend. And then the customer was able to just be like, oh, just go to Howie.com. It's $35 a month. And you can have literally the same assistant. You don't need one of his friends. And
no way.
Yeah. So that, it does happen for sure. Sometimes through direct word of mouth, or everyone's just kind of always talking lately about what AI tools are you using. And so if people I hear these stories of I was at this coffee meeting and my friend asked me what AI tools I'm using, and I said Howie, And they said, wait, like the thing you used to schedule this coffee meeting? And I said, yeah. And so like it happens that way where less than like, again, we don't put like a link to Howie in the emails that Howie sends. And so there's a lot of ways we could be more aggressive in doing that, but we care about the product experience over everything. And so we just don't want to dilute the product experience for the sake of a growth hack.
Yeah, that's always good. And when I first met you, you were living in Bend, Oregon. I think you're in Seattle now. What's the significance of living there? Like, shouldn't you be in San Francisco? You're building an AI company.
Yeah, so I had not spent a ton of time in Seattle before we started the company. Dave was living here and had moved here in COVID. Both of us lived in SF for like 10 years. And it does definitely help that we have like a deep networks down there. And we didn't know at the start for sure what we were going to do. Like build the team remote. Like we lived in different states at the time. So the two of us were remote, but over time we started to feel like it made sense to set up an office in Seattle. And so we did that and we started to kind of grow the team exclusively in Seattle. I was traveling here every other week. And so then eventually it made sense for me and the family to move here, which we did this summer. The reason that I think Seattle is awesome for us is SF is amazing, obviously. And there's a more vibrant startup community in SF than anywhere else in the world. And you just like can't compete with that. And there's more tech talent, especially tech talent that's interested in startups. There's more in SF than anywhere else. But the challenge that friends that of mine are having is there are the coolest companies in the world are all in SF. So every 3 months, YC has a new batch of 200 companies that all raise $3 to $5 million, and they're all competing to hire engineers within a 7 square mile block of California. And there's only so many engineers for those people to hire. And 3 months later, there's another batch of 200 companies. And then in addition to that, there are all the coolest AI startups that you can imagine, from seed stage to Series A to Series B to Series C to Series D to public companies and everything in between. And so the competition for great talent is just insane in SF. So friends that I have who are in SF and are excited to build their team there and be fully in the office have then ended up building a remote team because they literally can't find anybody. And so Seattle is interesting because there's a ton of talent. There's a lot of AI talent because AI has been happening here at Microsoft and Amazon for a long time before it was kind of cool. And because of those companies, also there's a ton of tech talent. There's less engineers that are excited about startups. There's a lot of, like, we got an applicant from an engineer a few weeks ago who is at Microsoft and has been at Microsoft for 31 years. And we were like, okay, you're not going to be a great fit for our culture here if you were at Microsoft for 31 years.
Who knows? They might be. Hey, they'll stick around for 31 years at Howie. That could be good.
That's true. That's loyalty. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe. But anyway, I think that like there just aren't nearly as many cool AI startups. And so we were able to kind of stand out in that regard. And there's still plenty of tech talent. And then like most of our investors are down in SF, but we travel down there and know lots of those folks already. And so for us, it's like, it's working really well. And it's fun to be kind of building in a place where we feel like we can really like be kind of on the map, especially as we grow.
Yeah, makes sense. One other question I wanted to ask you, but I know you do, I don't think it's not like your full-time thing, but you do some angel investing. You actually work with your brother. You guys have a small fund, kind of like an angel fund. You have a pretty interesting, pretty good rap sheet. What's kind of like the greatest hits on the Austin and Stu angel portfolio?
A long time ago, in like 2014, maybe we said we wanted to like do investing together, and we found there's some Hacker News thread somewhere. I can find the actual post, but there was a thread on Hacker News about angel investing, and Sam Altman wrote this comment that was like, "Here's how I did it. I made a couple of small angel investments with my own money because I didn't have much money to actually do it. But because those investments were good, I had track records. So then people wanted to give me their money to invest. And then that allowed me to do a lot more investing. And then he like rattled off that he was early in Stripe and Airbnb and all these things. And we were like, well, that makes sense because we don't have a ton of money to invest, but we want to do it. And so that seems like a logical path. And so we kind of decided like, let's move really slowly and make investments that we have very high conviction in, and build some track records so that eventually we could invest other people's money. And so first one we ever did, my brother Stu was working at Teespring and Jack Altman was his boss. And Jack one day said that he was leaving to start a company. We both had kind of gotten to know Jack. Stu got to know him really, really well, obviously working together. And we were like, he is phenomenally talented and motivated. And it was the earliest kind of stage. We were investing on a safe before they went into YC, and they didn't have a name yet. They weren't totally clear on what they were building. And it was a $4 million post money valuation. But we knew that we wanted to bet on Jack. We knew some of the co-investors who were pretty impressive names. And so we made that bet, which is Lattice, and now is doing like, I'm not even sure how much, but well over 100 million in ARR. And so that's been an amazing story. And then the next investment, I was the first ever paying customer of Superhuman, and I absolutely loved the product and like couldn't believe how fast the team was moving and how good the product was. Like I started using it when it barely worked, and then it kind of was progressing from there. And that was incredible. So I was just like, hey, Rahul, can we please put money in? So we did that one. Then a couple of years later, Mercury, I started my company Capiche, and I had really frustrating experiences with SVB when I was working with Jason, and we were using SVB, and so like I started searching around online for like, are there modern alternatives to these banks, and found a post from Ahmad who said like, I'm building an alternative, and I emailed him and said, hey, can I use it? And he was like, well, you'll be our third ever customer, and we're still kind of building the thing, but yes, you can if you want. And so I signed up, and I was Mercury's third customer, and I got to like see, I have these email threads that from, I must have been 2019, where I was like reporting a bug to him because I was trying to get a wire, or I can't remember what it was, but something, and it's like 10 p.m. on a Saturday. And then like 20 minutes later, Ahmad's like, I just pushed a fix. It should work now. And like, so again, like seeing the velocity and how much he cared. And obviously it's a huge opportunity. So then someone at CRV reached out to me to do like a customer diligence call when they were raising their round. And so then I emailed him out and was like, I just did customer diligence for you. I told them they'd be insane not to invest. And now I know you're raising. Can I please put money in? And so we did. Nice. And yeah, and then we raised the first cough drop. We call it Cough Drop Capital. My last name is now Petersmith, but originally it was Smith because my wife and I merged Peterson and Smith to make Petersmith. So Stu and I were the Smith brothers, and there's like a 150-year-old cough drop company called Smith Brothers Cough Drops. And so the name Cough Drop Capital is from the homage to that. Our dad and his brother had a boat called the Cough Drop when we were growing up. So that's where Cough Drop Capital comes from. And so we raised the first fund, which was about $1 million, and still has a ton of active companies that are doing great. And then the next fund is $3 million and is like kind of currently being deployed today.
Nice. And it's pretty small checks, right? Like 25K, 50K.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. That's easy to slot into a cap table.
Yeah. Today I have like pretty much zero time for investing. And so it's like sometimes customers of ours that are building cool things, and I'm like, hey, can I put 25K into this thing? Or like, I don't know. So it's like the deals that fall in my lap that are where I'm focused. I'm not like going to YC demo day or like going out and taking pitch calls with founders. It's just like cool stuff that I'm using or just excited about.
Well, that's the thing. That's like what everyone always says, why founders are good angel investors. They're just in the trenches. People are asking for advice or using new products or trying things. People are trying their products. So like you just see different stuff than like some country club guy who, is retired and maybe was like early Oracle executive or whatever. Like it's a totally different world. So
yeah, totally.
Well, cool. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for taking the time to do it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
And thank you for listening. Thanks again to Hanover Park for supporting this episode. Head to hanoverpark.com/Turner for the AI native ERP for funds, integrating with fund admin, portfolio management, and LP experience all in one platform. If you missed it, make sure to check out last week's episode with Chris Franz on building loops to fix email for developers. And tune in next week for Eric Barnhartson at Moto, building the AI infrastructure loved by developers. If you like this conversation, please like, comment, subscribe, name your next AI secretary after me, or just call it Chamath like I did. If you don't want to miss a future episode, subscribe to my newsletter, The Split, THEPL.IT. Link in the description. Get each episode of the transcript emailed directly to your inbox every week. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.